Hello, fellow theorists. Welcome to the channel. Today, we will be talking about Minecraft. It's an open world game that has been around for well over a decade and has been at the top of the gaming world since its release in 2009. It has sold over 300 million copies. I mean, if you don't know what this game is, you're probably living under a rock with Patrick Star. Enough of that. Let's get to the theory. You spawn in and there are villages, shipwrecks, temples, monuments, ruins, mine shafts, and many more massive structures. But where did these come from? I just wonder who or what created these structures. I know it wasn't the villagers. I mean, just look at this guy. There's absolutely no way this guy built this. So what really went down before the player spawns in? I have an idea. I believe a long ancient time ago, there were some nomad-like characters, and they weren't very smart. However, they got smarter and smarter, eventually learning to craft and make trading systems. They kept on learning and went from caves to nice cottages and cabins in the woods. They established kingdoms, eventually making temples and monuments to worship their gods. Then one very educated noble was researching and created a portal. He didn't know what he had just created, but he went through and he was met with extreme heat. He prepared himself better and started exploring. He found that this place was lifeless except for the occasional ghast or blaze. After exploring for a while, he went back home only to be confronted by the local law enforcement. They took him to the king. The king was very kind to the noble. But little did he know, the royal guards were taking the portal to the dungeon to be experimented on. Some time had passed. He ordered that the noble show him how to make the portal. This was due to the fascination. The noble agreed to show them how to make it, and went through the portal, and the king ordered that the fortresses were to be built for protection from the ghasts, and that bastions be built for storage, places to stop and refuel, and to hold pigs for food. While the fortresses were being built, the noble had become great friends with the king. In fact, after the king agreed on the name the Nether, this was because the noble's last name was Nether, they explored the Nether for what felt like months, but upon returning they found nothing changed, as if time in the real world stopped. So after gathering as many materials as they could, they returned to the Nether. Still met with blazing heat, they marched onto a nearby bastion to get some food from pigs, only to find that they had changed from four-legged pigs to half skeleton, half pig, and a fine line of fungus in between. They eventually came to the conclusion that it was because the pig's only food source was nether warts, a fungus that grows in the nether. So out of curiosity, the noble hits one of these creatures, and the herd of them start trying to get out of the pens to kill the noble. So they ran away from the bastion to a fortress where they restock on food. From just as the portal was in sight, the piglins ran up behind them and killed the noble. But the king had no time to stop, so he kept running, and once they made it, they replenished their health. The king went back to find the noble's skull a black withered color and sand that seemed to have little faces on it, and when he walked on it, it was as if there were people gasping for life. So he collected everything there and went back to the surface, vowing to never return to the Nether. He had all of the portals in the world destroyed for people's safety. As time went on, the king kept blaming himself for the noble's death, thinking maybe he could bring him back with his remains. Attempt after attempt he failed. However, he eventually found a way to bring him back, or so he thought. He placed 4 pieces of the soul sand and the skull of the noble in the middle, and he put 2 wither skeleton skulls on the other sides. It lit up and started flashing. Then, boom! It made a massive explosion, almost killing the king. He revised what he had created and zoned out. But one of the guards snapped him out of it, and they ran away, but they could not escape the sound of explosion. Eventually, they dug deep underground, creating a stronghold. This was because the king thought that the wither wouldn't find him underground. But after the king thought for a while, he came to the conclusion, if there was a second dimension, there had to be more. The noble taught him while he was still alive. So he experimented, eventually creating a brand new block. He made a portal with 12 of them and put an eye of ender in the middle of them. As it lit up, it made a very loud sound. As he was realizing what he just did, the wither found them. The noise was so loud it went all around the world. So thinking they could come back whenever they wanted to, like the Nether, they jumped into the portal, and when they went through, instead of being met with extreme heat, they were met with a cool breeze. They were also met with a dragon, and after it knocked one of the guards into the void, they tried to go back home. But there was no portal to get back. So they bridged across to some outer islands where they found no life except for this purplish plant that introduced chorus fruit. So they built cities with their remaining materials, and they made in-ships and eventually harnessed the power of flight and made dragon heads to show power. They replenished their health with the chorus fruit before going to battle. But before they left, they transformed into Endermen with the ability to teleport thanks to the power of the chorus fruit. Because like the Netherward, it was a fungus that ended up infecting them. Sadly, they remembered nothing from their past lives. As for the overworld, villagers made small towns and keeping them simple to try and make sure nothing like the Wither ever happened again. As for the Wither, it went back to the Nether, eventually running out of energy and dying, leaving its remains scattered across the Soul Sand Valleys. But there were some villagers who wanted more. They had ideas. They were cast out by the others. They eventually formed a group and called themselves the Pillagers and sought to destroy all of villager kind. And that leaves us with you, the player, to protect the villagers, maybe kill them, trade with them, or something else. You could also explore the great ruins of the last bit of intelligent life on the planet, or do anything you literally want to do. Well, that's the end of this theory. See you next time.